Yeah.
Van Glorious, Van Gogh.
Knowledge born.
Yeah.
United Front.
Tell it.
What you want.
To the Knowledge Radio.
We in here. What you got? Doc.
Work hard as a slave to one day be your savior. The wave unwavering. This is a labor of love. Rise with a purpose every day. Invigorated. If we were on TV, we'd be 10 times syndicated. If we waited for validation, a paycheck or accolades, we'd be starved, already lost or ran away. But when you're square, solid, and your circle too, you don't need a place for silence. The concept is conquered through media, not areas of people activity. A mix that don't lose ethnicity, tightness that don't lose elasticity. Explicitly, this isn't where we give the novice regard. Nah, this is where knowledge is born. Last time that I checked, I'm undefeated. Deliver edicts, can't resist when the gods build and manifest freedom. When lines get crossed, they may push a loss, cause they get handed a check. We kick your can and cancel your cancerous gestures. A prophet vision, precision, the prescription for the sickness is to inoculate your fate with the winning. Arrogant beginnings turn to humble endings. And US with KBA is a win-win. 1K.
Some of you say, but it's not the white man, it's just the system. It's not the white man, it's the system. If we can change the system, we gotta change the system. You sound like a fool. It's not the white man, it's the system. That's just like saying, it's the spider web. It's not the spider. It's the spider web. It's not the spider. And you work to tear down the spider web, but you leave the white spider, and the white spider will weave another spider web if you tear down the spider web that's in front of you. You haven't stopped the system. You haven't stopped the spider web until you deal with the spider, until you deal with this no good beast, until you deal with this bastard, this cracker, until you deal with this devil.
The question is, now, you see, the way you talk are frightening quite a lot of people.
Okay.
All right, according to what they've been saying and what I know. And I want to know that, are you going to not necessarily be meek and humble and all that, but are you going to just minimize your way of approach? Because not everybody is a revolutionary, or they have not been trained to be that, and the fear is keeping people away from coming together as they should. Now, what can you do about that?
There's nothing I can do about that, because it's my firm belief that somebody has to be that. Everybody can't be mealy-mouthed. Everybody can't be compromising. Everybody can't tiptoe through the tulips. Everybody can't play politics. Everybody can't, if I haven't said it, compromise. Somebody has to be strong. I wouldn't have to be as strong as I am if I saw some others being strong like that. I could tone down, but I'm feeling such desperation to get the message out, to try to plant the seed in those who are strong enough that the walls of their heart, the walls of the uterus of their minds, metaphorically speaking, can hold that revolutionary life and not abort it. So I'm not looking for great crowds. Most of the great crowd, you can get a great crowd where 1 million will show up if you're compromising on the principle. If you're telling them, as I heard some rappers and some musicians say, I'm going to the Million Family March, they said. I went to the Million Man March, and I did too. And they said, I'm going to the Million Family March because this time is for everybody. So they were happy that white folks were being included. Damn it, I'll never have anything where the white man is included. Alton Maddox is not at the Slave Theater right now because Alton Maddox says that what I'm doing is for the African. What I'm doing is for the black man and black woman. No white folks, they came to the door, they tried to get in, they criticized him for having me there, everything. They tried to take him to court. and the old Negro judge out there that owned the slave theater ended up putting Attorney Maddox out because he wouldn't let white folks in. There must be some place where white folks can't come. Now, white folks, we can't keep them out of here. This is Harriet Tubman. This is school. If they came in here, if they can sit under the fire that I'll put on there behind, they're welcome. But when they come, I ain't changing nothing for them. If anything, it's going to get hotter and harder because I got examples to point to sitting in the audience. And I many times tune right in on them. Sitting right in the audience. Look at that old ugly beast sitting there outside. Look at the way he's squirming. White folks, I say, should never be able to come into a black revolutionary meeting and be comfortable. And be comfortable. They shouldn't be comfortable. They should be uncomfortable. So I'm that one. It closes doors in my face. It cuts back on money that could go in my pocket. It drives some women away from me. I've had some sisters I was trying to talk to, and they were really, I mean, I thought it was really, you know, something. We talking, and the sisters, none of those sisters, some of them, you know, one of the sisters is a singer in this city, a singer. That's all, I didn't say an actor, I said a singer. And I thought we were going out, this is some few years back. I was all excited. I'd heard the girl sing. I thought we were going out, and as soon as we about to go out, she honestly, as God is my witness, said to me, I found out who you are, really. She said, I can't go out with you. She said, I'm not lying. She said, I might get killed if I go out with you. Do you want me to die with you? This is the truth. So, I mean, all of that is a part of it. I've been to Mecca 7 times. So you ain't got to wait for me to come back and tell you that I had no change of heart because of some crackers over in Mecca. I've already been 7 times, and I'm harder on them every time I come back because I found racism in Mecca. So I ain't coming back telling you that I'm changed because of some crackers I saw in Mecca. I ain't gonna change because of no communist cracker, no socialist cracker, nor a soda cracker, or a Nabisco cracker. No cracker is gonna change me. So, brother, if they stay away from me, they stay away. If the black nationalists, if the Pan-Africanists, if these other radical organizations, for certain reasons, pull back from me and I look up and they ain't with me no more, I don't give a damn. I love them still, but I keep on pushing because somebody has to hold the line. And I'm going to hold the line. Back against the wall on the 1-inch line. I'm holding the line. 4 downs down and I'm still holding the line. You ain't going in, cracker. You're not going in. Somebody has to do that. I'm comfortable uncompromising. I understand I'm not going to be invited to this or that or the other. Somebody has to do it. And your children and your children's children will build on the legacy of the uncompromising legacy that I leave. Right. Watch that. And some of them will condemn you for being around and being such damn cowards. Your own children will condemn you. You were with him? What did he say wrong? Well, it was the manner in which he said. There's no manner to fight an enemy like this. You fight it with everything you got. Malcolm said, you want to know when your enemy will understand that you want to be free? I'm paraphrasing him. He said, your enemy will understand that you want to be free when your enemy knows that you're willing to do anything to be free. Anything to be free. God damn it, you won't even talk to be free. You want to dress it up. He's too rough. God damn it, the times are rough. The cracker is rough. Everything is rough, but you just weak with all your Africa on. It ain't no Africa no goddamn where in your heart. Malcolm said that. He say some of you, he said you left your mind in Africa. You dressed up Negro. I don't mean all of you. Some of you fools. But most of us, many of us are just dressed up Negroes. We're just dressed up in our Africa. I've seen some dreadlock Negroes stay high all the time. Couldn't plan no kind of revolution. Can't even revolve out of the room. Can't even revolve out of the bed. Blunts and splibs this goddamn big. And white women. And white women. In the name of cultural diversity and multiculturalism, and I'm not a racist. Give me a black woman or get the hell out of my way.
Black power, black power, black power, BB48. We here on the God-A-THON. Now, y'all seen the God-A-THON a couple of weeks now, a couple of days now. You know, we still endeavoring to raise funds for our initiative, 3K for 3K. Today is a little different. Today is a little different. And as you can see here on the screen, it's a little different. Okay. So this is the African Retributionary edition. So this is an ode to Black August. This is an ode to the African Retributionaries, the past, the present, and the future. On this day of the ascension of the warrior African Retributionary, Dr. Huey P. Newton, we are assembled today to share some tribute to these African warrior retributionaries that you see here on the screen, the past, the present, and the future, as termed. So in their honor, I greet you with the African Retributionary greeting of wartime. Wartime, wartime, wartime. As to the call of the Khalid Muhammad militia, given to us by our African Retributionary wartime general, the 5-star general, the Khalid Muhammad militia, General King Samir Shabazz. Black Power, wartime, in our spiritual African Retributionary wartime general, the Honorable Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad. Those greetings of wartime and African retribution for the restoration of African people and the destruction of all of our enemies, foreign and domestic, internal and external. The only time an action is revolutionary is when the people relate to it in a revolutionary way. The only time an action is revolutionary is when the people relate to it in a revolutionary way. So we're here in Black August on the 22nd. And it's the Wisdom Day. So we're here on the 22nd, which is the Wisdom Day. All being born to culture, freedom. So what was the culture? What is the culture? What will be the culture of the revolutionary? Dr. Huey P. Newton says in this quote, the only time an action is revolutionary is when the people relate to it in a revolutionary way. So what is the revolutionary way? We term, myself and my wartime general, General King Samir Shabazz, the term retributionary. These were retributionary acts. It couldn't be contained within the spaces of revolutionary because it was not being personified. It was not being actualized in a revolutionary way. There is no complete constructive change that we saw from then to now. And everybody could be a revolutionary. Few could be an African retributionary. So in the spirit of Dr. Huey P. Newton, who was a revolutionary, who committed retributionary acts, in the sense of the African warrior retributionary, his disdain for Africa cannot allow him to be included into the ranks of the African retributionary. He was a warrior revolutionary. That ideology that was espoused in regards to his anti-African sentiments can't place him. This warrior revolutionary on his ascension day, we give him honor for his revolutionary action, not just lip service. So again, the only time in action is revolutionary. It's when the people relate to it in a revolutionary way. Let's get into Bible's definition. Everyone claiming to be African is not African at heart. Everyone claiming to be African, this audacious, bold claim, everyone claiming to be African is not African at heart. Every ideology espoused by those claiming to fight for African liberation is not, in the end, designed to empower African people. So now look at this audacious claims. Everyone who claims to be African is not African at heart. Look through your ranks. Look through your people. Look through those loved ones, those ones that's supposed to be close to you. Look at them and examine them. Look at yourself in the fucking mirror. Are you African in word and in deed? Or is this something that you're just espousing out of your mouth? What does it mean to be an African at heart? What does it mean to be an African in mind? What does it mean to be an African in action? Every ideology espoused by those claiming to fight for African liberation is not, in the end, designed to empower African people. What is your ideology? Do you have a peace-loving, can't we all just get along ideology? Ask yourself, how the fuck has that ever benefited African people? Do you have an anti-African life-affirming ideology? Or do you support it? Or do you justify it? These things are not for the empowerment of African people. These ideologies. This is what Bob is saying. Every ideology What is your ideology? What ideology are you espousing out of your mouth? And then when we examine your lifestyle, doesn't coincide? Is it congruent to the cultural mandate and the cultural responsibility placed on African people for African people's liberation? Who the fuck else is going to get you liberated? Every ideology espoused by those claiming to fight for African liberation is not, in the end, designed to empower African people. African liberation, African sovereignty, what Baba is saying right here in this space, is the only way to empower African people. The only way. So these are the wise words and wise ways and actions as it applies to your culture. Your culture, as Dr. Remember Anis says, is your immune system. It shapes your worldview. So how are you looking to get free? How are you looking to get free when you don't have a culture that empowers you towards your liberation? That everyone who is coming under the guise of this particular culture has this understood and is working arduously to put themselves in a position for the destruction of those who seek to impede or eradicate you from reaching the goal, us from reaching the goal of African liberation and the death of our fucking enemies. In fact, some of those proponents are as anti-African as Yurugu and their culture and society. In fact, some of those proponents are as anti-African as Yurugu and their culture and society. Let's examine these ideologies. Anti-African. If you are an African, if this is your culture, if this is your way of life, you should be able to show and prove in no limited time. You should be able to show and prove in no limited time. As with our spiritual wartime general, just related what I'm doing, what our wartime general is here doing in real time. The mission of the Khalid Muhammad militia is for the African. He said, what I'm doing is for the African. What our General King Samir is doing is for the African. And how we're moving is for the African. That's clear. And it's our African Retributionary Minister of Information. Baba Steve Coakley Sr. said, peace and blessings be upon him and his divine family. Clarity is essential to victory on the battlefield. Confusion in the inverse is to the detriment on the battlefield. So we're operating from an African space, from an African center, with an African foundation, clear and concise, not espousing any anti-African sentiments. Some of those proponents are as anti-African as Yurugu. Now look at this indictment. Look at this indictment. As anti-African as Yurugu, it don't get no more anti-African than Yurugu. And their culture. What is their culture? And society. What is their society? We know their culture. And we know their society. This picture of Jonathan Jackson, I'm telling you this picture of Jonathan Jackson, this picture of George Jackson, this picture of Nat Turner, this picture of Jean-Jacques Dessalines, this picture of Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad, this picture of our wartime general, General King Salman Shabazz. This is not this is the picture that should be imprinted into your psyche when you think about those who stood, those who fought, those who killed. Think about those who fought, those who stood, those who killed, not those who kneeled, not those who marched, not those who held up fucking signs. And retribute for those African warriors who came before them. And retribute. Isolation, torture, repression, provocateurism, isolation, torture, repression, provocateurism, plague the mind and the spirit. Of Dr. Huey P. Newton. See, these are the things that we don't get into. We don't get into the death sentence that was given to George Lester Jackson. Who was given 1 year to life and was killed in prison. And a brother who made it his sole purpose to train his body, his mind, and his spirit to free his brother by any means necessary. Isolation and torture is designed to break you. Isolation and torture is designed to break you, to break your spirit, to have you question the allegiance, to question yourself. If you ain't never been beaten, you ain't never been tortured, if you ain't never been kidnapped, you ain't never been put in isolation, you have no clue except from a topical vantage point, if that, of the lengths that your enemy will go, of the lengths our enemy will go to avert, to distort, and to destroy those who stand for African liberation. Those of us who know who and what the enemy is, and who know that you cannot be wholly African within European culture and society, recognize the deep-seated, convincingly intellectualized confusion of the pretenders. Those who know and what the enemy is. See, the wartime general and I did a specific class speaking about the psychological detriment of humanizing your enemy. The psychological detriment of humanizing your enemy. Humanizing your enemy will erode your consciousness that has you in an African insurrection state. You begin to humanize your enemy so you could see your enemy as yourself. And when it comes time to eradicate your enemy, you will not. You will not. You will forgive your enemy because you see your enemy as yourself. You won't hunt your enemy, no matter how many times your enemy has hunted you. You won't hang your enemy from a tree, no matter how many trees your enemy has hung us and our people from. You won't strap your enemy to the back of a pickup truck and drag him to the pieces of the lifeless beast body fall into pieces, no matter how many examples have happened to our families and to our history. You won't take one of them little cave dogs from their grandfather's house in the middle of the night and beat them and stab them and shoot them and put them in a cotton gin. But you could listen to people saying they looking to press charges against the cracker devil who lied on Emmett Till. You can say Mamie Till's name, but you won't maim and kill those responsible. We don't fucking believe you. We could wear the shirts of Dr. Huey P. Newton. We could hold up the books to die for people. We could hold up the book Revolutionary Suicide. We could hold up the book Seize the Time. We're not prepared to trade the place. You could talk about Assata Shakur. You don't want to be Assata Shakur. You could say free Mumia. You don't want to be Mumia Abu Jamal. You don't want to be Delbert Africa. You don't want to be Sanyika Shakur. You don't want to be Matulu Shakur. You want to talk about them. You don't want to be Imam Jamil Al-Amin, formerly known as H-Rap Round. You want to talk about them. If you're even talking about them. If you even have a space in your heart and a space in your mind for them. If you even have a space for them in your being. You don't love them like they loved you. We could read about the Move 9. We could hear about the Move 9. We could be around Mama Pam. You ain't want to be them, no. You ain't want to be John Africa. We could listen to Dr. Khaled. You didn't want to be Dr. Khaled. You didn't want to be betrayed like Dr. Khaled. You didn't want to be poisoned like Dr. Khaled was poisoned. You didn't want to catch those bullets that Dr. Khaled caught in front of his child. But you want to criticize the manner in which he spoke. With bullets holes in them. Took and tortured. In isolation. My wartime general, poisoned. Countless assassination attempts on his life. All the betrayal. All of the betrayal. And he still chooses us. Like Dr. Khaled still chose us. Like George Lester Jackson still chose us. Like Jonathan Jackson still chose us. Like Dr. Huey P. Newton still chose us. Do we choose them? Do we choose us? So for these ones that I'm speaking about, do you choose you? Do you choose you? Do you choose your loved ones? Do you choose those beautiful African children? Do you choose them? Only. There's no interface any place else in the world with us and any other things that exist on the planet other than a space of servitude or criminality. There's no equality. There's no equality. It is not in the psychology of the lion to empathize with the hyena, nor the hyenas to empathize with the lion. We know who and what the enemy is. And we also know that you cannot be wholly African within European culture and society. We know that. We know that. So we have an understanding that to be black in America is illegal. To be African in America is illegal and is punishable by death. Punishable by death. You cannot be wholly African within European culture and society. We also recognize the deep-seated, convincingly intellectualized confusion of the pretenders. We know the pretenders who adorn African garments and build up obsessions with subsections of African history. The parts that are comfortable, the parts that are compromising, not the parts that are destructive to European culture and society and all of the enemies of African people. We recognize the deep-seated, convincingly intellectualized confusion of the pretenders. In their hearts, these individuals, many claiming to be new Africans, intimately and defensively harbor old European ways. They harbor them intimately. So that's in their hearts and in their minds. And they defend them, as do the Negroes. They decry in order to magically become radical. So an instance happens. An instance happens on time release and sensationalized by the mass manipulation of the media. And in that space, you become radicalized. In that space, you want to march. In that space, you want to protest. In that space, you want to loot. In that space, you want to riot. And then you take your happy ass back to fucking sleep. In that space, that sensationalism is built up. They decry in order to magically become radical. All of a sudden, you become radical. They are not independent nation builders. They have not rejected Europeans in their calls for Pan-Africanism. And this was glaring in Sam Greenlee's book and in the movie, The Spook Who Sat by the Door. This was glaring in the statements that Bobby Seale made. This is glaring nowadays. My pro-black is not anti-white. It doesn't work in the inverse. Their pro-white is anti-black. Their pro-white is anti-black. In word and in deed. It's in every subsection, deep-seated in European cultural thought, behavior, and identity. They're not confused about it. They're not confused about it. We're not confused about it. We're just in a state of denial. We're not confused about it. It's there. It's there. We're clear about who and what they are. All of our enemies, we're clear about them. This state of deniability is a complex that comes from fear. That comes from fear. That comes from abuse. That comes from epigenetic trauma. It's clear. Just from the state of denial as a whole. Some even revere a copycat European named Marx as the genius of their methodology, promoting class over race, as they bed whatever liberal who will validate their human worth. They have no problem with European insanities as long as they are allowed to equally participate. This masochism that exists. This masochism that exists. This glutton for punishment. This addiction to struggle. The longing for pseudo-martyrdom. This obsession with revolutionary suicide. This fake connection to heroism. A bunch of goddamn junkies. A bunch of goddamn junkies. Under the banner of revolutionary cause. Bunch of fucking fiends. A bunch of goddamn video vixens. Under the guise of revolutionary. Is revolutionary. It's when the people relate to it in a revolutionary way. Some even revere a copycat European named Marx as the genius of their methodology, promoting class over race. Promoting class over race. Dr. Bobby, right? spoke about this. Peace and blessings be upon him. He said that the revolutionary 60s went from a race struggle to a class struggle to an ass struggle. From race to class to ass. So this foundational space that this revolutionary posture was assumed was in the self-defense of Black people and raising the racial consciousness and awareness of Black ideology, Black cultural nationalism, African ideology, African nationalism, to a Pan-African space, to a revolutionary Pan-African space, to an African retributionary space. From all of that divine space to a devolution to class, a subset of European domination and control, a subset, a class struggle, a proletarian versus the bourgeoisie, the working class against the rich and the fascists and all this other ideology that was being skewed around and spewed around. Dr. Bobby Eugene Wright said, fuck that. Baba Steve Coakley Sr. said, fuck that. Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad said, fuck that. Us against them. Not no damn system. System don't got no address, no telephone number. Can't tie up no system. Hold it for ransom. Hold it hostage. You can't firebomb a system's house. You can't mobilize under the cover of darkness to destroy a system. You can't operate clandestinely to destroy a system. You could do it to some beasts, though. You can track some beasts down and hunt them. You can kill beasts and their offspring. This is what Nat Turner understood on Today. This is what Jean-Jacques Dessalines understood on Today. This is what the Black Dragon, George Lester Jackson, understood on Today. This is what Jonathan Jackson understood on Today. Think about how much more impactful the cover of this book would have been if it said to kill for the people. To kill for the people. What about this one right here? It says, instead of revolutionary suicide, revolutionary homicide. these books were true to the reality that they existed in. So it's written from that particular vantage point. George Lester Jackson said, "They will never count me among the broken men." Bunch of broken men walking around here, pretending as dressed up Africans, as Dr. Collins was saying. Dressed up not just in clothing or wardrobe alone, but dressed up in these ideologies that they're espousing. Bunch of fucking junkies and fiends running around here, playing dress up. Looking for any liberal who will validate their human worth. And again, they have no problem with European insanities as long as they are allowed to equally participate. They present the image of themselves as seasoned revolutionaries. They present the image, the costume, the appearance, the reflection as seasoned revolutionaries. Yet, oh damn, Baba, tell them. Yet, what do they do, Baba? They champion feminism, gender confusion, colorlessness, capitalist socialism, and interracialism. Hot there, Baba. They present the image of themselves as seasoned revolutionaries, yet champion feminism, gender confusion, colorlessness, capitalist socialism, and interracialism. They are neither revolutionary nor New Africans. They are neither revolutionary nor New Africans. Given the democratic lie of Western society, they fit the description of what might be labeled as New Europeans. Oh. New Europeans. Given the democratic lie of Western society, they fit the description of what might be labeled New Europeans. New Europeans. The affirmation states, "I respond to revolutionary acts in a revolutionary way." I respond to revolutionary acts in a revolutionary way. The affirmation states, "I respond to revolutionary acts in a revolutionary way." Are we responding to our cultural narratives, to our cultural responsibility of African liberation in the appropriate manner? Are we moving in accordance to that African insurrection spirit that appeared to Nat Turner on Today, that appeared to and through Jean-Jacques Dessalines on Today, that inspired George Jackson, that inspired Jonathan Jackson, that inspired Dr. Huey P. Newton? Are we moving that way today? The fact is that black men are addicted to white women, and the results have been kind of cultural diabetes. The union, temporary or permanent, of the black man and the white woman is a source of severe sickness of both parties involved. Remember, you said the race struggle to the class struggle to the ass struggle. Because their union means that either they have fallen naively in love and are willing to brave whatever storms as a testimony of their love for one another, or they genuinely believe that bullshit pitch about America being a democracy with every man having the right for the pursuit of happiness. Or they can feel that by marrying into the opposite race, they can better help things. Or they are completely ignorant of the history of the Republic. The sickness, this disease, this cultural diabetes that he's speaking about. Like you're addicted to sugar. Like you're addicted to bestiality. The ass struggle became a divisive tool that was used, as the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, in regards to the devil sending you its woman. The divisive tool that was used, the divisive grand separation in regards to the revolutionary struggle from then to now, this deceptive tool of white bestiality love between the black man and its master dog. The loyalty that exists there. The loyalty that exists there. Your loyalty is to the person with whom you sleep. Therefore, if you sleep with the enemy, your loyalty is to the enemy. Therefore, if you sleep with the enemy, your loyalty is to the enemy. In other words, if you sleep with the enemy, you are the enemy. It makes no difference what you say or how profoundly or eloquently you say it, what you have read, heard, or think, or how you wear the trinkets or the garb. If you are sleeping with the enemy, then you do not know that we are at war, or at least in any meaningful, ancestrally connected, conscious, intelligent, revolutionary, non-treasonous, visionary, sovereignty-seeking, active African-centered, race-first sense. If you did, then you would not be sleeping with the enemy, period. It's not complicated. Loving Yurugu's trash is self-evident proof that you love Yurugu. Loving Yurugu's trash is self-evident proof that you love Yurugu. Again, if you sleep with the enemy, you are the enemy. In the same way as it is said that living by the sword will bring you death by the sword. If you sleep with evil, you will die with evil. The affirmation states, I am not a trash collector. The affirmation states, I am not a trash collector. The affirmation states, I am not a trash collector. Remember your duty and responsibility to your people. Remember your duty and responsibility to your family. Remember your duty and responsibility to your race. Remember your duty and responsibility to your nation. Remember your duty and responsibility to your ancestral lineage. This is what I have today for this God-A-THON, African Retributionary tribute to the past, the present, and the future African Retributionaries in honor and ode of their sacrifice and commitment to the eradication of our enemies, internal and external, foreign and domestic. Black Power, a baby for Holy Aid, wartime, wartime, wartime.
Some of you say, but it's not the white man, it's just the system. It's not the white man, it's the system. If we can change the system, we gotta change the system. You sound like a fool. It's not the white man, it's the system. That's just like saying, it's the spider web. It's not the spider. It's the spider web, it's not the spider. And you work to tear down the spider web, but you leave the white spider, and the white spider will weave another spider web if you tear down the spider web that's in front of you. You haven't stopped the system. You haven't stopped the spider web until you deal with the spider, until you deal with this no good beast, until you deal with this bastard, this cracker, until you deal with this devil.
We are at war. I don't think there's any other way to begin this or to say it. We are at war. We're in a physical war of attrition, which for some people it may appear that we are losing, but I measure it based upon how far I've moved away from being European. The slave's wisdom is in the master's head. When deeds speak, words are meaningless. If they come and get your men at night, they'll be back in the morning for your women. Proverbs are people's wisdom. But when you teach children in Proverbs, then you are cultivating their ability to think. We have to stop sometimes. Someone will say something. someone will say a proverb to us, and we have to stop and think about what it means. And then what it means in terms of the context of whatever they're talking to us in. Because Proverbs work your brain. Proverbs make you think. Imagine what we would have in our communities if every other sentence, every other discussion we had, we presented our children with a proverb relative to that. What kind of firepower we would have in the minds of our children. We wouldn't have a situation like we have now where we moved from miseducation where they're given the wrong information to diseducation where they don't want to have to think because it's work. Proverbs shows you how intelligent you are. It gives you the wisdom of your ancestors. I wanted to go through a list of what it is to be a man, or what manhood is supposed to be about already. So for me, manhood involves at least 5 major components. You have educator, leader, provider, protector, and respecter of women. In our home, politics is simple. Politics don't have to be big. They should really be simple things. For Indiana, no Euros, no homos, no Negroes. One word for me. It's a very important word in our house. John R. Clark talked about how the Romans, when they wanted to conquer Kemet, they would greet each other today. Greetings, fellow Roman. Egypt must fall. Greetings, fellow Roman. Egypt must fall. And this was an affirmation they said to each other day in and day out until they did it. We must say something along those lines. How you say and what you say, that's up to you, but we need to incorporate that into our conversation. We say a BB Fahodie. Can you say that with me? A BB Fahodie. A BB Fahodie. That's tree for African liberation. A BB Fahodie. We say that when we greet each other in the morning. We say that when we walk out the door. We say that when we're going to bed. We say that whenever anyone sneezes. A BB Fahodie. A BB Fahodie. A BB Fahodie. A BB Fahodie.
Praise Nat Turner, glory to Garvey, and long live the spirit of the Honorable Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad.
Oh, say, can you see white folks oppressing me as they spew for their lives and plan my people's demise, whose broad stripes and bright stars represent all the scars inflicted upon our race, a great people displaced. Now the time has come for the revolution as we march through the night and take hold of their lives. Barbie land and red and black and green, African flag wave. When we win the victory, forever
those 10 hours. If I have not convinced you now, in spite of all of the efforts over all of these years to stop critical information about the enemy from being relayed on a grassroots level, If I have not convinced you by now, I will never convince you. After I left here in the last program, I listened to some of the commentary in regards to the 10 hours worth of information that I had presented here and in other places that was accessible to the people. The information, the best I can tell in lieu of any challenge to repudiate it, is beyond reproach. One's personal feelings about how they had to swallow or accept or listen to the things that I say in carrying those facts have found that it is not the convincing of the information that will make us move. The facts are irrefutable. But the enemy is so wise that it becomes the personality of the bearer of the information that stops the people from beating the enemy that kicks them all day and all night. I listened to some of the laughter and I felt so bad for the victims, because the leadership, I know, does what it must do so that it can contain and control the people from beating the specific honkies that got the money, the 0.1% of the population that controls 72% of the wealth. That 0.1% pays a lot of money to be protected, and it protects itself in some very subtle, unusual, and almost happenstantial ways. That happenstantial disengagement or disrespect of the knowledge is what our community has suffered from. If you watch Garvey, I stand here and talk to you 5 hours about Cecil Rhodes. Pick up philosophy and opinion, and there's Garvey on Cecil Rhodes. But you don't know Garvey for fighting Cecil Rhodes, because the leadership had to assure that he was not the subject. It's Du Bois versus Garvey. When it came down to Malcolm X, and Malcolm had kicked to the point of wanting to get at the jugular vein of the hunky, the last speech. It's not Elijah Muhammad. It's the international white power structure that's headquartered in New York, Paris, England, etc. And they were imperial, colonial remnants, and they continue. And he said it, but the last speech was stricken from the record by Spike Lee as incoherent. And the result was, it was Malcolm versus Elijah. Every time the engagement comes, here is Coakley versus Amos Wilson. It's not Coakley versus the honky, because Coakley gonna kill the honky. And Coakley doesn't want to have to beat or abuse his own people for the privilege to kill the honky, because the honky gone. Nothing, no ridicule, no misstatements without documentation, no petty little frivolous little laughter that I heard on those tapes was the sickest thing I ever heard from a people with no force. You sit up and look at an election, and each and every time, I don't care if it's Dinkins, Good, Brad, I don't care who it is, what they win, I don't care if it's the African group, the religious group, we have failed somehow to stop the honky. And all I ever want in life is the privilege to fuck him up. That's all I want. Now, if you're going to get in my way and I'm going to fuck the honky up, I might end up having to fight with you on the way for the right to beat the honky. But I don't want to beat you, but I might if I have to. And I will accept the abuse and the disrespect of me and the information for the right to fulfill the mission. I am beyond the sensitivity of your opinions. It will not change the honky. He is advancing without hesitation. Look at the honky. It's the honky right here in the neighborhood. I was just in Boston last night, and New York to Boston, it's the same honky. Colonialism is back, and not a moment too soon. Anybody know anything about this article? Y'all read under this? Yeah, it was in the Times, it sure was, but it said that honky getting ready to take Africa. But ain't we got nobody on the shift called Africa? Ain't nobody on shift called Africa, point Africa. We got religious point, political point, African point. But no, it's Coakley versus the brother. While the honky advances. Honky say, nigga so confused I can tell him in his face I'm gonna take his ass. Cause he got people in place to assure that the analogy remains brother versus the brother. I know the strategy. I go all over this city, just the faces and the names who bear it change. If I had to pressure your ass tomorrow, the spy network in our community is so easily to find and to flush out, we could beat you and burn you in 30 seconds flat and prove you are who you are. We have people in some of these places that type out your vouchers. This is deep penetration. I want to tell you the game we playing with the honky ain't no joking shit. A lot of people have died for the right to play the game. I don't know what you in it for. Maybe this is what you do after work, on the weekend. Go home and read the books. But I don't know. I have fought and lost for the right to fight the honky all day long. I do and fit just as I see. I have fought and earned the right. Lost 4 or 5 jobs, lost family, lost respect. I've been disrespected by some of the best of them. That's why I don't depend on them to do the things some of you think they're supposed to do. They're not coming. The voucher's bigger than you ever think. You will greatly, years from now, underestimate who all was in on the big thing. Damn near they're all on it. Or they've decided for the protection of themselves. Security. Security that in actuality they cannot even guarantee. You can't say, if I don't fuck the honky, I'm gonna live a little longer, because you could get hit by a car, struck by a fishbone. It doesn't matter. You are in no control of your destiny, so quit fucking around being afraid. What are you afraid of? You have no guarantee on the life you live, so why not let loose a little? Just a little. If not, if the honky can say this, no honky suffered for this. You know what the honky saying? We are witnessing today the revival of colonialism in a new form. It's a trend that should be encouraged. Fuck. Do you all remember colonialism? Y'all happen to remember this shit? That's what made the different complexions in our skin color. They fucked us. They took the land and set up an illegal enterprise. And now they got this shit so set up, they're fighting reverse discrimination. Man, I just don't understand it. So I ain't gonna spend the 5 hours laying no more of the proof, because the proof is solid. I'm gonna share with you some deeper penetrations, some personal things we've done to give you a little idea about how deep we end up on the honky. And the facts are solid. The people we're after, the people that 15 years ago, somehow some strange little blurry information put me on, the people I fingered all that time ago turned out to be just the honkies that we was after. But if I was to share with you the times I've been cut off the radio, the times I've been denied. I was just in Boston. The black paper ran that I was speaking, called me a speaker from D.C. They would not even print my name because the owner of the paper is in the boule. I mean, you know, it does not mean that the information is wrong. It's just that the people who have to live and abide by the rules of the prosperity and opportunity that they chose really did it at the expense of the rest of us. And we've just never set up a retaliatory mechanism to get it straight. They didn't fuck around and pull Mandela out of jail until they burned the collaborators. No honkies got beat. They did not kill honkies and make them go get Mandela. They killed the buffer to the honky. The pressure on the buffer to the honky. Do you know that I'm banned on radio in Washington, D.C. in an all-black owned station? I'm banned. Why am I banned? Because the motherfuckers in the boule called down there and told them take his ass off. So now, instead of getting 1,000 people out of the election, I have to work 2 weeks to get 500. Not because the information is less, but because I'm going to be denied the opportunity. Ain't nobody ever stepped up and said, well, let me tell you about this part of what you said. It's just, we're not going to have that. I used to be banned on the radio in Chicago. I remember walking on the street fighting for black women who had been injected with a drug called Dilantin. 278 women, 4 of them died, 2 of the kids died, and I was banned on the black radio in the town for the people I was standing up defending. We even won the case. The ladies got $1.4 million, but brother couldn't even go on his own radio. People had to go on and replace me, and they couldn't even mention my name. And somehow, in spite of all of that, someone has to find the desire to keep going in spite of the agents in place. It's the understanding of knowing that they better get their ass out there. They better dehumanize this operation. They better call this brother the creator of conspiracies. They better. Because if they don't, brother's gonna kick that honky ass, and I'm gonna beat them for being with them. It's gonna happen. Everybody hedges their bet. I'm gonna work with the honky, but be the African thing. That's hedging a bet. You are what is holding us back. I don't want you to misconceive this. Whites do what they're supposed to do. We do contradictory things. We just do strange things. It's costing people their lives too. I wanted to have a lecture at Howard on Columbus Day, but I couldn't because the school was closed. Now at Howard, they don't want Brother Copley to give lectures there no more. Says, I don't know what, I only had 2 in the last year, but had a couple thousand people at them say something. Some they say you don't want Copley to have no more lectures around at the rooms that were made available for the people in the community. The all-black university. Just left Howard Law School, standing at the door, still trying to keep Brother Copley out, 2nd year in a row. Just got canceled from Grambling University. President said, I will not procure a check for Copley to come to speak to the students. The black people, my own people. Never has anyone ever stood up with a document and said, brother, can I change your mind with the evidence? They said, brother, can I shorten your opportunity and lessen a person's chance to hear it? So, in spite of that, we'll share a few reflections about the depth of the hunky, and you tell me if you think he afraid of whatever he think we doing. You'll get a good impression of how he think when his moment is gonna come. And when his moment comes and the shit break out, all the other stuff we wish we had prepared for gonna bypass us. The gig will be up. Unless some of us, it won't have to be all of us, in spite of a few, will go forward and do the things that have to be necessary by constantly penetrating and reevaluating and focusing in on the core of the honkies, the core of negativity, the small little group of those that have to be dealt on to make something significant happen.
Yeah. Now we gonna tell them. Night in front. We tell them like this, yo. I'm an African. I'm a African. I'm an African. I'm a African. Yeah, y'all like that? So no more. This man's mind is open. I'm an African. I'm a African. I'm an African. I'm a. Let's get back to the
motive is best developed by recognizing the common enemy.